to the next presentation, which is going to be from Robert Procter, again from Wisconsin in the Dane County / Madison area. Robert, remind me how the acronym, I know it's Realtor Association of South Central.
Realtor Association of South Central Wisconsin, a marketing nightmare. But yes, it's a name that they will not change. So again, it's the Realtors Association of South Central Wisconsin. I'm the Government Affairs Director, and Raskow, as a local realtor entity, covers about 21 counties in Wisconsin, including Dane County and the city of Madison, which is the home of the University of Wisconsin. It's the capital, the fastest growing county in the state, and the most liberal county in the state. And that's basically where we're located. And so what we've done locally is the Raskow, the Realtors Association of South Central Wisconsin, created a 527 Raskow Housing Advocacy Fund. And that's what I'll tell you about today. So next slide, please. All right, so this slide is basically telling you who we are. Raskow Housing Advocacy Fund is a 527 that was created by Raskow. It's a separate tax entity that is able to advocate in campaigns. It's an entity that is able to say, vote for candidate Y or vote for candidate X. And it is generally funded using our PAC, using grants from the NAR and grants from the State Association's Housing Alliance. And we do a couple things: issue advocacy and candidate support. And it's the issue advocacy was used to be done by Raskow, our Realtor Association, as opposed to the Advocacy Fund. But we decided to move it over because of some of the issues we have, and to brand the Advocacy Fund. If you could do the next slide, please. So one of the issues we've run into, for those of you on the call that have read the recent New York Times article on the National Association of Realtors, the Raskow Housing Advocacy Fund would be the local equivalent of the American Property Owners Alliance that was in that article. For those of you who haven't read the article, don't read it. You can just ignore it and move on. But it's basically the similar type entity. And we run, Dane County is approximately 90% will vote Democrat. Well, maybe 85% Democrat, and they'll have historically a 90% turnout. And one of the problems we've always had is, obviously, we're seen as a Republican-leaning business association. So often when we interview candidates, in the past, we would ask the candidate, do you want us to endorse you? And they would say, well, I'm happy if you endorse me, but I won't use it, and we don't want you to announce it. It will hurt me if the Realtors Association endorses me. And anytime that we would back a project or back a policy issue, we would have to do it quietly because we would be accused of doing more harm than good. One staffer at the city of Madison said, anytime you want to kill something, you should come out in support of it. And so that was the type of issues that we were dealing with. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Can you hear me? Can you advance the slide, please? Okay, well, something's going on with the slideshow. So anyway, one of the things we tried to do then was to build our credibility with the elected officials and with the electorate at large. And the way we did that is we started to partner with a number of groups, and we did it by actually doing large donations to get into some of the local groups, such as that partner in order to, oh, here we go. Oh, okay. So, well, we're back. So anyway, when I was talking about us having a credibility problem, this was the picture that accompanied one of the editorials against us, or that was critical of what we would do. And as you can see, it was Raskow pouring money into the ballot box. So next slide, please. That's where we started trying to address our credibility gap. And in dealing with the credibility gap is the first thing we did was to really reach out to a lot of the other stakeholders in the housing world. Obviously, the housing crisis gave us an opening, and we started to brand the Raskow Housing Advocacy Fund. And basically, our tagline is always, we support candidates and policies that support housing. And we used our PAC, and we used a lot of other mechanisms to donate money to different organizations in order to create our own brand on housing. When we joined one of them, one of the organizations, one of the elected officials actually objected to us being in it, tried to get us kicked out. But we were able to start doing these things. So next slide, please. So one of the examples is working through an NAR grant. We did Madison Housing Week last summer, and that was 7 days that it was us, the AARP. These aren't all the coalition partners. There's about 10 of us. We paid for the whole thing through a grant, the Realtors Association, but it was taking tours of missing middle housing in Madison, doing seminars on reducing zoning barriers to building missing middle, taking tours of affordable housing, taking tours of accessory dwelling units. And we worked very closely with a lot of these groups in order to build trust with them. Next slide, please. The next one we've been working on for a long time is we've been working with a group called the Dane County Housing Initiative. And that includes Dane County, the city of Madison, many municipalities. And we've been spending about a year putting together a housing report that came out of strategy and all over. And basically the idea is the cities and villages came together with the local stakeholders to figure out what they can do on housing and take all of those ideas back with a scorecard and then implement them. We were one of the largest donors, and now that the strategy is done and we're trying to introduce it, we're running a $125,000 campaign to get some of the strategies, especially in the city of Madison, approved. And we're starting by, you can see here, we're wrapping the buses with the information, and you can't see it very well, but at the bottom, you'll see it's paid for by the Raskow Housing Advocacy Fund. So then you get to the next slide, and you'll see that we just did a Dane County a Dane County election for county executive, and we supported Melissa Agard. We did an issue advocacy campaign for her, spent somewhere just under $70,000. Which is about half as much as the candidates spent. So we were easily the biggest third-party player within the campaign. To kind of give you the idea, when we play in the campaigns locally, if the city of Madison alders are up, there's 20 of them, we may spend $150,000, and all of them together may spend $100,000. So we've been spending a lot of money, and usually, as I said before, nobody would want our endorsement. They wouldn't meet with us. Well, Melissa Agard got elected, and you can see the picture on the right is members of our Government Affairs Committee. We were invited to her inauguration as county executive. We took pictures with her up front. Most of the local officials will now take our endorsements, put them on their materials. They will, we are one of the largest people that donate to all the elections, but through our issue advocacy, we were able to build this brand up in order to so that everybody locally would truly see us as housing. And we don't do anything negative. And we also, though, make sure that everything we do is based on housing. We don't, we protect our brand as the Raskow Housing Advocacy Fund very closely so that we don't end up with like the negative press. And I think a real good example of that is there was recently a referendum for the school district that's going to raise real estate taxes about $1,300 to $1,400 a year on the medium priced house. And we were going to run a huge advocacy campaign against it, and we had the NAR run us. Joe Good ran us a poll, and the poll showed that it was going to easily pass. And not just that it was going to pass, that if any candidate opposed it, that they would be viewed very negatively. So we decided to pull out of that campaign and keep our powder dry. And it did pass 70% to 30, but being able to use the polling through Joe Good, and we were able to protect our brand and not waste money on that type of campaign. But those are the kind of things that we've been working on to really try to create a brand. And we've been doing, it's taken about 6-7 years for us to get there. So it didn't happen overnight, but really concentrating on doing issue mobilization, very positive pro-housing issue mobilization, has allowed us to create credibility when we support candidates and reduce the criticism of when we invest money into these campaigns. And that's it. So the last slide just says questions. So.
Robert, awesome. Thank you very much.